steps from the Capitol in Cheyenne with reporters in your hometown. These are the top stories from the Cowboy State Daily News Center.
It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Wednesday, December 24th. I'm Mac Watson. U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman on Tuesday announced her intention to run for the U.S. Senate. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that Representative Hageman says her choice to run for one of the state's 2 U.S. Senate seats sprang from calculations about doing the most good for Wyoming.
Scuttlebutt surrounding her office from late January till now was she's viable for governor. We saw polls to that end. We've heard speculation from that end. So a lot of people were watching to see if she would do that, if she would take on the at-home trail boss seat. So it actually surprised a lot of people Tuesday morning when she was like, I'm running for the Senate. But when I asked her about it, she said, look, a lot of the bad that's plagued Wyoming over the last couple decades has come out of Washington, D.C. So if I want to curb that bad, I got to stay in Washington, D.C.
In her media release, Hageman pointed to her 2 terms in the House, her service on the House Judiciary and Natural Resources Committees, her prior career as an attorney, and her experience with the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act, and of course, putting Wyoming first. Sticking with politics as we enter 2026 and the midterm elections, Wyoming Education Chief Megan Degenfelder on Tuesday said she is strongly considering a run for governor, while other political figures are thinking about higher office as well. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that while Degenfelder hasn't committed, there are candidates who are campaigning to be the next governor of Wyoming.
It could be a toe in the water to see what kind of backing, what kind of support, what kind of constituent feedback you can get with a maneuver like that. Often when we see someone say that, it ends with a run of some kind. Senator Eric Barlow declared earlier this year and has been consistently campaigning and has raised $500,000. And then Brent Bien, who's beloved in multiple corners of the state. And then from there, it gets a little more interpretive. Reed Reisner had set up a governor's finance account for that office, but has not declared a run for that office. And at this juncture, Secretary of State Chuck Gray, who's political in a lot of his public messaging, remains a mystery as to just which office he's seeking.
With 5 statewide elected seats up for election in 2026, as well as 2 congressional seats, with both incumbents departing, Wyoming is in for a shakeup this coming election season. 2 Cheyenne teens facing attempted first-degree murder charges in a failed plot discussed their plans in a profanity-laced audio recording, so say police. Cowboy State Daily's Scott Schwebke reports that according to court documents, one suspect is recorded saying, "I'ma kill him."
3 people in a Subaru went to this house. 2 were teens, 2 were 16 and 17-year-olds, and 1 was an 18-year-old. The youngest of the suspects got out of the car. One of them shot into a Kia that was parked, and then they took off. They returned a while later, and 2 of them stormed the house, got inside the house. They were looking for this one person. We're not sure who that is, but apparently that person wasn't there, and they were pushed outside of the house by someone else, and they left.
The 2 teens haven't been identified because they are juveniles, but a third suspect, who isn't heard in the recording, is 18-year-old Michael DeHera of Cheyenne. DeHera is suspected of driving the other 2, ages 16 and 17, to a home where they believed the victim has been charged with the lesser crime of possession of a weapon with the intent to commit a felony. Wyoming oil and gas operators are cheering a Bureau of Land Management announcement to delay a Biden-era 1,400% hike on bonding costs. Cowboy State Daily's David Madison reports that the huge increase threatens to shutter small oil and gas producers across the state.
When an oil and gas producer goes out and drills a well on public land, they've got to put up a bond that basically protects the public from getting stuck with some cleanup bill down the road. There's long been a back and forth about how much that bond should be. Under the Biden administration, they really drastically increased it. And from their point of view, the increase was necessary because there were these big cleanup bills for abandoned or orphaned oil production. Trump administration came in and really listened to the oil and gas producers who said, look, this is just overly burdensome. It's going to harm small operators in states like Wyoming. Can you roll this back for us? The way that the Petroleum Association of Wyoming put it was like Christmas came early when the news came down that these overly burdensome, from their point of view, bonding requirements were drastically lowered. And
The direct final rule delays enforcement of Biden-era regulations that would have increased bonding costs by over 1,000%, while the Trump administration works toward permanent solutions. I'll be back with more news from Cowboy State Daily right after this.
Have you met your health insurance deductible for the year? Give yourself the gift of peace of mind by getting your health screenings in before 2025 comes to a close. You have a choice for your imaging, and with efficient pre-authorization assistance, extended MRI hours, convenient scheduling, and patient-focused care, Casper Medical Imaging and outpatient radiology is the clear choice. Schedule your X-ray, CT, MRI, ultrasound, DEXA, or mammogram today at CasperMedicalImaging.net.
Cowboy State Daily News continues now. Cheyenne's historic 1892 pump house is getting a reprieve from the wrecking ball. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that the Cheyenne City Council is replacing a resolution that set a deadline for its demolition with one that calls for restoring it to use again.
At that time, baths were not common. Water that flowed into your house was a new idea for Cheyenne, this little upstart town in the West, to have a pump house that would deliver water into your home. That was truly magic. And it's part of why Cheyenne earned that nickname, Magic City of the Plains, because they were doing things in Cheyenne that were practically unheard of in the West at the time. And the pump house was all part of that magic.
Cheyenne Mayor Patrick Collins tells Cowboy State Daily that the pump house has the same architecture components as the Capitol and the historic train depot. Black Diamond Pool in Yellowstone National Park has been active since its massive hydrothermal explosion back in July of 2024. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports the pool recently and unpredictably erupted twice in 2 days.
This most recent stretch, it erupted on December 18th and it erupted on December 20th. And based on the readings, those were both of a similar size. So we're talking about water and mud being shot 30 to 40 feet up into the air. It's not like Old Faithful where you can get a regular pattern of eruptions. They don't know exactly what's going on at Black Diamond Pool. Now, that's not unheard of for a Yellowstone thermal feature. They're always changing. The bigger question is what that'll mean to the National Park Service, because Biscuit Basin, where the pool is located, has been closed since the hydrothermal explosion in July 2024. And until they feel safe and confident that Black Diamond Pool's doing something they can anticipate, they're probably not even going to think about reopening Biscuit Basin to visitors.
Since Black Diamond Pool blew itself apart in July of 2024, there have been 14 documented eruptions. The time between those eruptions has varied from more than 46 days to less than 2 days. It was Christmas Eve in 1888 when a father and his 2 young sons brought gifts to their neighbors, an infamous group of nefarious characters out in Salt Creek Canyon in the Wyoming Territory. Cowboy State Daily's Jackie Dorothy reports that the family were almost shot before making friends with the notorious bunch.
It was the Buck Hanby gang who had fled as murderers from Kansas. Now, the local people had described them in the newspaper as long-haired, wild and woolly-looking individuals, and into this dugout walked a father and his 2 sons with one purpose, to wish these men, these desperados, a very Merry Christmas. They were greeted not with open arms, but by the barrel of a gun, and at the very end, they walked to their horses and gave them a gift of donuts and cookies from Ma back in home.
The gang had built a half dugout 16 by 20 feet wide on their homestead on the east side of Salt Creek Canyon and south of Red Butte near what is now Newcastle, Wyoming. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting that daily newsletter button at cowboystatedaily.com. And you can listen to this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel or listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening. I'm Mac Watson for Cowboy State Daily.